Stacey Berger here today with a very special guest, somebody who I have a lot of respect and admiration for. I'm here with Michelle Hordal from Adaptabilities. Thank you so much for being here, Michelle.
Well, thank you. I am super excited and honored to be a guest here with you, having a wonderful conversation.
Yeah. So tell us, first of all, about Adaptabilities. And you've got some acknowledgement, some celebration happening right now. So tell us about the couple of things that you're celebrating.
Yeah, well, so in 2004, Adaptabilities was born. And here we are, 2024, 20 years later, and we're celebrating a huge milestone. And we're young. We're 20 years young, and people are still finding out about us. And there's been a lot of hard work along the way with amazing people who have joined me in supporting what's really, to me, an important cause. And so Adaptabilities empowers families and people with diverse abilities to grow, succeed, and belong. And we were nominated. I have two wonderful peer mentors and people that I admire and look up to, Catherine Vu and Glenise Harvey, nominated me for a Business in Edmonton Leaders Award. And it has been absolutely incredible. The celebrations, the recognition of, the team and myself that have helped us get here. So it's just been a really exciting fall for Adaptabilities.
So exciting. And it's such an important thing because I don't think we do enough celebration, right? If you think about everything that's happened over the last 20 years for you to be where you are today and to be given this opportunity to pause, reflect, acknowledge yourself, your team, celebrate something that because there's an external process happening, but I think something internally we can cultivate more and more is that attitude of celebration.
Yeah.
Tell us about the inception of Adaptabilities and where the idea came from and give us a little bit of the backstory.
Okay. Well, I put myself through college, university doing respite, and I worked for three families, and I got the job the good old way back then when I took the phone number off a bulletin board and couldn't have imagined a better family to start with, but that was respite. And I couldn't believe that I was getting paid to have fun with kids. And really, respite is that temporary relief of the challenges that a family experiences when supporting and caring for a child with often complex needs. And so that was my part-time job.
Okay.
And I also took adapted phys ed. So everything was kind of coming together. And I maintained that. I became a teacher. And it was really when I was in that education field that I got to hear more and more struggles. Now, I didn't stop working for those families because it was like you become a part of their lives, and it's not for the money. It really is for the relationships and the difference that you're making for that family. It's hard to just walk away. And so as a teacher, though, here I am now as a phys ed teacher, and I just heard so many stories of struggles and frustrations. And I'll tell you two really quick ones. One of them was a dad who had explained to me that he and his son, he was bringing him to summer camp, and everybody was super excited. Just like imagine you're driving to camp, smiles on your son's face, and then you drop him off, all is good, you go back to work, and it's not even noon. It's around 11 o'clock, and he gets a phone call. And it was the instructor at the camp and said, "I'm really sorry, but I need you to come pick up your kid because we don't know how to support his behavior." And it's just like when you hear those stories, I can only imagine, like the father is explaining to me what he's experiencing, but what about the child and that sense of not belonging? And that stays with them for a long time. And so, that sat with me.
Yeah.
I had two students come to me and say, "We love to ski," because I'm the phys ed teacher, right? "We love to ski." They share with me. But when we go to the ski club, nobody talks to us. Like that's their lived experience. So, from those two stories, it was like, I got to do something about this. So can I run a summer camp? I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna figure out how to do this. But the background in adapted phys ed is strictly you change the environment to create success. when it comes to social nights, I mean, you're 14, 15, you maybe don't have that independence like other teenagers do, and you may need the guidance of your parents, but that's not cool to go out with your parents and a social night. So then I created programs specifically for those types of stories that I heard. And I mean, everyone was a gap in the system. So like there's a story for every single program, how it became to be.
I think that is so relatable. You saw a need, right? And which is how most businesses opportunities, there's a gap in a system, there's a gap in a product, a service. So that's how many ideas are born. I tell people, listen to your longing and your discontent. So hearing those stories and how it impacted you. And just Michelle, for you to acknowledge that, is so many people have those ideas, they have those thoughts, but they don't do anything about them. But you, what can I do with this? And you took some big, bold action and started a camp and started a date night and or evening out, right? Good for you. So Adaptabilities, you said something really interesting there that I think is relatable for all of us. So change the environment.
Yeah. When you change the environment, it's really how to create success for life, which was one of our mottos. But when you change something, it provides an opportunity for somebody to succeed. Yeah. So, in adaptive ed, we might not use a regular racket that other, children might be that are age appropriate developing, but we still want people to have success. So you're just changing the size of the racket. Yeah. For example, you can change the rules. You can but they're minor things that allow someone to grow, which is kind of where our grow, succeed, and belong. I was a teacher. So if I'm going to be doing respite with a family, it needs to be meaningful. And I'm going to help them grow because I just don't want it to be busy time, passing time. It's like, what can I help you with that will allow you to succeed? Many kids are not asked to join in on the playground, and they may not have the muscular strength to hang on a monkey bars. So those are the types of things that adaptive ed, so we just played well into the name of our care providers, which were relief care specialists, because everybody came into the work with something that they're really good at, whether they're a musician or, they can be teaching those skills. So bringing something that you're passionate about. So that's kind of how the whole philosophy started on putting together, because respite, those 3 families talked to other families and they wanted to hire me. And I'm like, I can't, I'm a full-time teacher. So managing all of that. And all of a sudden it was like, I could only manage like 7 families. Yeah. So I decided to hire my first person. So that's getting to your question. Like, how did it, now our margins, and I don't say profit because margins, was about $3 an hour. Okay. So I was a teacher. It really wasn't about how much money I could make, but I definitely knew I didn't have a ton of time. So I read Tim Ferriss's book, how, a 4-hour work week, like how can I do this in the minimal amount of time? So it was very important for me to be efficient. Yeah. And I had about 3 months worth of salary saved up. First, I had to save up to buy a computer, and then, I hired her and we were a perfect fit. It was a friend of a friend of a really good friend. So that referral is really what started all of this. Her name is Roxanne Schaffner, and I cannot, back in the day, she was there speaking to families and matching a relief care specialist to them so that they could come into their home and give them respite. So that was another one of the big programs we provided.
So still working full time? Wow.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yes.
And so the growth, how many employees do you have now?
We have about 200.
200.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so at what point was it's time to leave my job and to make this my career? How long did that take? And what was that decision?
Yeah,
like?
That was a tough decision. I had 2 babies in between there.
Okay.
And 2012 is when I finally, I would say, retired or resigned from teaching. So, went from teacher to social entrepreneur. And I reduced my time over that time period and then took some leaves, obviously, when the babies were there. In other words, from teaching, but not from working on adaptabilities.
Yeah. And do you remember what it was like to make that decision to leave security and pension and some benefits and holidays
Yeah.
to go
Oh,
into this?
clearly. I mean, my husband is a teacher, and it was really him that helped support me.
Okay.
I had taken a 3-year leave from teaching. And at that time, there were, lots of teachers that wanted work. So I got an extended 3rd year after my second child. And at the end of that, I had to give it up or go back. And I couldn't. I was like, I can't. So I got the perfect job, and I worked 1 day a week.
Okay.
And I got to do Adaptabilities 4 days, and I worked in a school as a phys ed specialist. So it was great. But at the end of that year, I just knew that I couldn't. And it was really my husband that said, encourage me. Because, yeah, but I also took that, I will say 8 years of building up enough reserve money that we could afford to pay benefits. That was really important to me. So
Okay.
I am not going to leave teaching until I can offer benefits to other people.
Mm.
I wanted to be able to build it up so that, I could, you think about it, like you're giving up a lot. You said the pension, but I wanted to at least try to build up a teacher salary. So it took many years. I would say it probably took 10 years to do that. But yeah, you're giving up a lot, but at the end of the day, you're also filling your soul. And it's, as an entrepreneur, one day it'll come back to you, right?
Yeah.
So that's the belief that you have in, building something from
Well,
nothing.
and you're losing something, right? You're walking away from something, but you're also gaining. And so what did you gain on the other side of that decision?
I think I just had so much to give that being a teacher, it was within a classroom, within a school setting. Here, I was able to spread my impact at a much higher level. And I think I've realized that along the journey. There were periods of time where I'm like, I got to get out of working in the business, because I do. I love supporting kids. And I miss it. I miss it a lot. I do. When I go to visit, I get that connection. But I do know that my time and energy and my passion can be on the other side of building the business to help more families.
Yeah.
So that's what wakes me up in the morning, knowing that I get to make a difference.
Yeah. So talk about that transition from really being working in the business, and you're the caregiver, you have that interaction, to being more of the entrepreneur, the administrative, the leader, the visionary. And was that an easy transition for you? Did you get support in order to make that transition?
Yeah. That was, I would say, very difficult, because you do want to have control and those types of things. I think I got to a point where I was trying to do it all.
Mhm.
And I was doubting myself. I thought, I don't know how to run a business. The payroll was getting bigger. All of the numbers were rising. The revenue that we were generating, it was just overwhelming, the number of team members that we had. And that's when I got introduced to Alberta Women Entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
And that is a pivotal moment for me. I spent the first year once a month stepping away from the business, working on it and looking at all the facets of the business. And I've been like, I wanted this 2-page business plan, and I got it. And it was, for me, a blueprint for me to be able to lead. But lots of struggles and challenges with being a leader. And am I making the right decisions? And do I follow my gut or not? And over time, you just you get better at being aware of when you're doubting yourself and being able to step through that fear. So AWE, there was a retreat as well. That was, this was about a year of me being in AWE. It was 2016. Things got pretty big, pretty crazy. I had so many things being thrown at me. So imagine that this is in my home, and my husband and I built a house in 2013 across the street, so that the house, right, our home, wouldn't have the business in it. Okay. And that was really important to us. But what happened is we were looking to move into the White Ave location. And what, like anything, when you're doing a renovation, it takes time and there's delays. So we were planning on this big growth plan. We were hiring people. We had a social media person. There was an extra finance person. It ended up moving into my home, okay, into the new home. There were 4 people showing up every day at my home. This is now October, and my right hand, we had a moment where I did a termination, and it was difficult, and I needed to do that. But along the way, it came to, and we were moving. So in December, we're moving. And it's just like, I can remember it. I got shingles. Okay. I am, 2016, I'm not old enough to get shingles, but if that can just tell you the amount of stress that was there.
Yeah.
We walked into, we're moving the day that we're moving. There's an occupancy issue in the place. I got all the stuff in a van ready to move from my original house, right? We're moving everything to this office that day. And I remember like being, again, paralyzed of not knowing what to do. But I just, like, you sit in that for just a minute and then you got to get into action. I called my brother, who works for a senior construction manager who sees big construction deals. And I'm like, what do I do? And he's like, let it sit on the van, and I'll remember this. And I'm like, he said, go get him coffees and tell him to sit tight, and you're going to go talk to the landlord and figure some things out. And it was just like, it was the best thing ever. And it was like, it felt comforting to know that I had people to call. And the other thing that happened is I had the people around me who were saying, coming to me with their problems. And I love to solve problems. And so I hit a breaking point. Like, I was doing everything that I could just to get us moved in, never mind solving all the issues. And I said, look, can you just solve this? Just go back and solve it. And I had no idea how important that was. Yes. Because they came back to me later and said, oh my gosh, that was the best thing you could have ever done. Like, you always are trying to solve everybody else's problems. And she said, I gave her wings. Yeah. And I'll remember that forever. So
what a great growth opportunity as a leader.
And to let go and say, you can do it. I have faith in you. But I was forced to do it. Yes. I couldn't just, I didn't figure it out on my own. It needed to get to that point for me to really so there's these periods of letting go all along. Yeah. And I think that was the time too, that when I went to the retreat and the paint night, here you are in a retreat, and this is the complete overwhelm that I was feeling. And there's a canvas and everybody is laughing and giggling. And I remember looking at people, there's wine, there's rum, we're having a good time. It's at a retreat and we're doing a paint night. And I had a hard time putting paint to the canvas. And I remember working with the instructor, the facilitator, and she really had to help me and guide me. And I was having a tough time. And it wasn't until the next day, as a teacher, we reflect. It's part of our practice. And I was like, what is going on with me? But I was at that point where I was afraid to make a mistake. Things became more difficult for me and I couldn't do it all. And so it was another piece of me letting go and being able to find people who are smarter than me, because I don't need to handle that budget. I do not have an accounting background. I know what the numbers need to look like, but I can't do all those big spreadsheets. So it was, I'm courageous. I'm not weak, but I saw it very much as a weakness.
So the ability not to being able to manage it all and know all of the things felt like a weakness.
Oh, yes.
And not wanting to ask for help. But once you realize letting go, asking for help, getting smarter people in the room, it's actually a very courageous thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was incredible. My experience with Alberta Women Entrepreneurs and the mentorship. And I learned from other entrepreneurs as well.
Yeah. And the importance of surrounding yourself with that, right? Having help outside of your 4 walls and other entrepreneurs, other people who are up to big things, and learning from them, right?
And being very vulnerable with them. And you're not trying to hide what you're not. This is me. This is real. I have emotions. I have challenges, and I have self-doubt lots of times. And yeah, I don't have time to have an MBA, to go back to school. I was raising 2 young children, and it kind of came to me that, yeah, I don't need to. I am learning. I had an opportunity to go to Harvard, for a course, and it was through Women's Presidents Organization. So that's the next step. That took me to a whole different level. And it was like, I was doubting myself there. And they're like, you're getting a mini MBA, but you don't need, but I needed somebody to tell me that I didn't need that, because I didn't think I was smart enough. I didn't have those letters behind my name. And they're like, you're doing it. And she said, so many of us in that room don't have MBAs. We're entrepreneurs that had an idea, we saw a demand, and we went about it. And so hearing this prof, who is like well-known, amazing leader in the entrepreneurial world at Harvard, telling us that we have so much knowledge and wisdom, more so than those young, 18, 19, 20-year-olds that are doing their, their business degrees. Like they're So it was a really shift in my perspective, for sure.
Which is why we're even having this conversation, because I think so many people are sitting there with self-doubt. I don't have the letters behind my name. I don't know how to do these things. And so am I good enough? And it's easy to look at somebody like you, who's being acknowledged as a leader, who's celebrating 20 years in your industry, and think, well, Michelle never had self-doubt. And for us all to be more vulnerable and say that's part of the journey, and to normalize that, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, for me, coaching, I know that's what you do, and it really is important. I always also thought I couldn't afford it. I couldn't afford to join WPO. There's a cost for that. There's a cost for coaching. I remember joining GIFU, Global Institute for Evolving Women. Marie Soprovich introduced me to that wonderful organization. And where I'm going through some coaching with him, and I am very hard on myself, like many people are. We're critics. And I was just so focused on the end. Like, I'm a visionary naturally. So what is it that I haven't achieved is really what I was focusing on. And I know you talk about when you focus on something, that's all I see. Yeah. All I saw is what I hadn't done yet. I knew what I wanted in, 3, 5, 10 years. And I'm like, it's taking a long time to get there. And I mean, I like it. I appreciate it when a coach just tells me right to my face, Michelle, you're like a butterfly. Butterflies, they have eyes, but they can't turn around and look at their beautiful wings. And again, that just sticks with me. I will never forget that. And I was like, oh my gosh. Taking time to just stop and look back at what has been accomplished, what the wins are, and even stopping to celebrate those wins, like that's really hard for me. Yeah. And I don't have a really great practice in the meditation, and so I haven't figured it all out. I'm still working on it. But one thing that I have done is I love to see the joy. And so in my calendar once a week, it shows up, and it's just a time for me to sit back and reflect about what are all the things that I love about, my life and the things that I'm doing. So I really have to focus on looking for the joy. I know that might sound ridiculous.
Not at all.
But when I'm, so fast paced, I have to remind myself to slow down.
Yeah. Well, and we tend to value the doing and the busyness over the slowing down, but there's just as much value in the slowing down. One of the things that I want to presence, you and I both know the power of words. And I have 2 important missions in my life that aren't necessarily my missions, but I hope someday, I see it in my lifetime. And one of them is the government of Canada, the opposition party, to be renamed the Accountability Party. Because as long as it's the opposition party, it's always opposing, which isn't very productive. And so the power of the name of something, and the other one is the not-for-profit industry. Right. Because I believe that the not-for-profit industry needs to be abundant, and often has the thinking around scarcity and lack and not enough money and resources. And so you have a name for your industry.
Yes.
So would you share that with us?
Yeah. And I'll start off with my word this year is abundance, because we have to remind ourselves in the charitable world, the not-for-profit, it doesn't sit with me in that we have to work for less. We are underpaid, overworked, undervalued. There is rampant burnout. People are leaving the industry, and it is, I think, a real crisis for leaders in the not-for-profit world, because where is the younger generation? And I don't think we need to do more for less. I think we need to find top talent, and we need to reward and retain our incredible team. And you can't do that by expecting them to do more for less. We need to value them. And so I like to say we're for impact. It's not all the things we're not. It's what are we here for? So we're different than the for-profit, okay? But it's for impact. But it's people first, and I'll say profit, but that's a dirty word. Surplus, always. You cannot run a successful anything without having the money in order to pay the good people that are doing the work.
And the more money you're making, the more impact you can make.
Exactly. So there was, we've got an expansion fund. So when we have these times in Adaptabilities history where we want to set up a new center, all of that, there's no government is not giving us money to set that up. The government is providing respite care, which is the hourly rate of somebody being paid to provide that care. So all the other things that come out of that is, where Adaptabilities gets to make an impact and make a difference in the life of the families and their children that we support.
Which requires an abundance mindset.
Yes, absolutely. When I go through the time of I was looking at that last night. The first one was less is more. So I've been doing it for the last 5 years. Then it was calm. Okay, so now I'm calming down a little bit, right? And then it was joy. I really needed to see the joy. I mean, I hired a feng shui lady to come into my office because it just, in 2016, it was stressful, but 2018, 19, 20 just culminated. And and nobody likes to talk about budget, okay? But we bill $18.67 now, back then it was $14.05, to $35 an hour. And in 2018, our budget was $4.2 million. Then it went to $5.5 million, and then it went to $6.8 million. During that time, I had the support of Women's Presidents Organization. I could not have done that without them because there's all that doubt. But that's significant growth.
Significant.
And hundreds of thousands of hours of service each and every year where you're trying to maintain equality and a standard. With sometimes limitations that are put on, nonprofits in our world that we have to do more for less. And I could say we have burnt out. Anytime one person burns out from the work we do, it's too many. And we've really worked hard the last 3 years to support our team and show them how much we value them. And without them, we couldn't do the work that we do.
And I've had the pleasure of being in the room with your team, and they are an incredibly passionate group of people. And to watch you and how much you care, not just about the families, but about your team, very inspiring.
Thank you.
Would you end with a success story about one of your families, one of your clients, and how Adaptabilities has made a positive impact? What's one of your favorite?
Okay, well, this one was back in the day. I mean, there are so many. Right now, we share on our newsletters, our supporter newsletters. It's just stories on a monthly basis. But this goes back to when I was doing intakes with families and I was meeting with a mom. And, the story is I don't really like coffee, but I'll share what I mean. So this mom is sitting down and she's applied for a bursary. And I have the the privilege of being able to share with her that we're going to give her child a bursary. She's a single mom, she's a waitress, and, she is doing this on her own. And the government does provide some funding, but not typically enough to be able to cover what the costs are. And they expect parents to have a portion. And so I was like, oh, sit down, I'll get you a coffee. And she's like, no, I'll get my own coffee. I said, no, you got to get a coffee. And I turn around and I said, I don't like coffee, but man, when I put this creamer in, like a caramel toffee creamer, and I turn around because I'm not looking at her at that moment, and she is completely broken down and she is crying. And there was so much gratitude from her, and I didn't understand. I said, did I say something wrong? And she says, no, I'm a waitress, and all I do is serve people every day. And the fact that you offered me a coffee was like nobody had ever done that. And I thought, it's just the simplest thing. And thank God that I need that creamer to make coffee taste good, because she said, and to top it off, you have a special creamer that, it was just the whole experience. And then for her to have her child attend camp and not to have to worry. Her child was there experiencing what all children should experience in a summer camp, meeting new friends, having new experiences, and having fun, bottom line. What we all want our kids to do when they go to camp.
What a gift.
Yeah. If there's a why, it doesn't matter how, just get it done. And my mantra is find a way. There's been so many roadblocks. People tell me you can't do that. And I'm like, really? I'm going to find a way. Let's make it happen.
I love that. Thank you so much, Michelle, for being here, for the work that you're doing in the world. We'll make sure that we connect to Adaptabilities, where people can find you, in the description.
Thank you. And thank you for allowing me to share my story.
Yeah. Thanks again for joining us. I hope you got at least one insight that can help you as you're building your dreams. I'm Stacey Berger. Here is to you living a life that you love.